No Gola remembers who they are. If you value the
I
past
think it was me.
or the mind,
My internet's been
then Gola
lately.
are worthless.
Am I back? Am I back? Are we here? Okay. Welcome back, everybody. I think it's me because he also stopped talking until just now when we came back. Nogola has the memory of its original host. Nogola remembers who they are. If you value the past or the mind of of the mind, then Golas are worthless. But if we learned in the lab that if they go through enough psychological trauma, or if they are compelled to act against their original's morals, whatever, then they could break through and receive the memories of the previous person and the ones that came before, right? So they're not completely worthless. What about me? What about me?
Indeed, you are a refinement. Your compulsion doesn't drive you to madness as it did the ones who came before you. You have a great deal of imprinting. You can learn skills that take decades to develop in a short amount of time. And, fascinatingly, you don't have the appearance of whoever you are originally grown from. Perhaps that is the clue.
Oh, that's different.
You must have been someone with a recognizable face. The Bene Tlilax are forced to hide you in plain sight.
I was someone famous. My character needs to pee. Can you talk faster?
It's plausible. You seem designed to be anonymous.
Maybe I'm several people combined. Like a zombie? A zombie. Like Frankenstein's monster?
It seems highly unlikely. Such experiments would be psychologically unstable.
I'm psychologically unstable. Wait, is he implying that I am psychologically stable? Oh well. What do you think they want?
Perhaps we can discover the answer together. Recently, there has been a string of murders in Arrakeen.
What?
The victims have all been my agents at one time or another. A Tlilax retaliation for your efforts on my behalf. My chief inspector believes so. Travel
Who's your
to
chief
Arrakeen.
inspector? I was just
Find
there!
my investigator in the Imperial Consulate. He'll be thrilled to have the help.
Huh? I'm tired of working for you. Okay, I'll go.
I expect nothing but excellence from you. Report to Alara when you are done. I will continue research into your origins.
Goodbye. Let's use the restroom, guys. Right into this corner. No one will know. I can't go any further. Wait, there's like privacy right here. I can't even go in there. In here. Wait. I've never been here before. Max Clinic. Oh gosh. Oh god. Is this the character customizer of Harko Village? I'm so glad we went to the other one. Never mind what I said about how sterile the other one was. Or wasn't. But... what the heck? Hey!
Come in, Pawindar. Come in.
What is
State
a
your purpose
Pawindar?
before my fricassee grows cold.
My
And is
fricassee!
barely edible when hot. One would think that in an imperium of 1,000,000 worlds, some culinary aptitude would have developed somewhere. What I wouldn't give for a proper bowl of klavnagar, or even a plate of
Klavnagar.
VODS, steaming, rare, and glowing like the fires of Aralu. What is it you wanted again? State your business or be gone. My fricassee grows cold. 13. Where are you hiding, damn it?
Who's 13? His chin kind of looks like something indecent. Got anything that needs doing? I'll do quests for you.
Can you take directions, Powendar?
What is a Powendar?
You wastelanders have failed me many times before. Never mind. I can't expect a truthful answer from your ilk. But it just
Kinda
so
sounds like
happens that
Snape.
there is a matter that could benefit from the attention of one with your rough, skills. A package of mine is overdue.
They pay more. In Araki, they paid you like 4,500. This guy pays 8,500. Crucial set of spare parts, critical for the operation of my clinic, has been maliciously delayed. I pay top money for its retrieval. Find me in my clinic. Got it.
Need is overstating it. I simply require an odd assortment of spare parts to fuel my experiments, and will pay handsomely for their conveyance.
He really sounds like Snape. Or talks like him. Sounds like needs me. I'm here to help.
Something about this corrupt world nurtures the greed in your kind, Powendar. Until recently,
Greed.
I had a convivial relationship
Convivial.
with my supplier. They provided a fresh and steady supply of the materials I require, and my payment was similarly unfaltering.
Convivial. Friendly, lively, and enjoyable. Of a person cheerful and friendly, jovial. She was relaxed and convivial. A convivial cocktail party. Got it. Fancy words, little man. Interesting, interesting. What went wrong?
They suddenly started demanding 5 times as much for the same product. It's an absolute outrage. I won't
Oh
pay it.
no. Find a different supplier.
I would if it were so easy, but there are variables I will not bore you with. Still, they hold my package for ransom. It is an outrage.
An outrage, I tell you. Cancel contract. Actually, I'll pass. Working with you sounds like a nightmare. I'll get your package back.
You'll find the
Why
robbers in
was the
Jabal Efreet.
quest thing on the
I will
cancel part?
amend the contract with the exact coordinates.
Okay. Whoa. Hey, buddy. Search the slaver base? So it's not here? Huh. Hey. I wonder. Hey.
What have you learned?
How do you fare?
I do not know. Holding,
Oh.
I wanted to weep, but I don't think these damn Tali Laxu eyes are capable. You've been a good pupil.
Okay, bye. I don't know if using the other dialogue thingy will just compel him to do something I'll regret. Let's see. Where's the quest board? There should be like a bunch of quests for Harko too. Unless that was only Arakeen. Oh my god, please. Stop. Oh! Margot Fenring is the one that, slept with Fade Rotha in the movie. This is her. It's her. But it's whoa, my hair. It's Count Fenring's wife. And I researched more into her, and apparently Count Fenring, the guy that we spoke to, is infertile. So then he allowed his wife to get knocked up by Fade Rotha. Because apparently Count Fenring was one of the people in... He was like a possible Quedat's Haderach, whatever. Like Paul or whatever. But it couldn't be him because he was infertile. Hey.
Not now. I am otherwise engaged.
Goodbye. That's crazy though. These Bene Gesserit will literally do anything for their goal, huh? Hey. Where is a quest board? Oh! It was here. Whoa, 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 whoa. Is that a person? Okay, what's this? Anonymous merchant. Before the war, Harko was a smaller village where people understood the rules. Now we have had an influx of new people selling their wares at lower prices. I don't care what their excuses are. There are rules and everyone follows them. Help me send a message to these price dumpers. And have something stashed. I have something stashed in an alley that will help you with this. Okay. So this is cheaper. It's like the price of the other place. And I think the other quest from that face changer guy was only that much because we have to leave. Okay, got it. Pick up the stash. I'm gonna track that quest real quick. This one? Stash in an alley. Is it possible to stash things? Oh! Threatening message. Chalmers. Container with parasite husks. What do we do? Hi? No. Place message. Okay. I was being very discreet, wasn't I? You're selling too low. You're selling too low. Where did I place? Not you. Sorry. Wrong person. Place the parasite husk. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Taint some meat. I'll taint your meat. What? Anyways. This is neat. Ew. Not dangerous to kill anyone, but some customers will regret their meals very soon. Oh. Kind of. Suspicious. Contact issuer. I hate having to resort to such measures, but things were getting out of hand. My livelihood was on the line. A vendor who can't pay his dues quickly ends up in Neo-Carthag, and I'd rather avoid that fate. Was Carthag a prison? And Neo-Carthag is a new prison? That's it. We have finished. Okay. Track this one, and now we can leave. We gotta go to Arakeen. Search the slaver base. Should we do that? An urgent request. Urgent. Urgent. Don't look at me like that, Jaku. I am guiltless. The things that come out of my mouth. So the ultimate edition of this game came with the the soundtrack or whatever, and I was just like, does anyone pay attention to those? So I downloaded it just to see because I was curious, and it's basically the background music, and I've never noticed them before. Never noticed them before. But then when I played it, I was like, oh, these sound familiar. I think he was saying Slaver Base, and that's gonna be around here. Make the game a little bit louder. They also reduced the noise of the ships, so it shouldn't be as loud now. I like the music when I was playing. I barely noticed it. Maybe because I have the sound really low. The eyeball. I'm somewhere safe. Oh. Oh, that's really far. I could have... Oh, it's closer to base. Let's go to base. Sorry. Another cutscene. Can I just run into this? Nope. Nope, nope. I thought it was close enough to the edge. It was not. Blah. Is everybody hydrating? Drink your water. This way. Because I feel like after this... Hi Cal, hello! After this, they're gonna make us go back to Harko. So we're gonna do this first, and then do Erkin, and then go to Harko. Hi, welcome in! How are you? I'm doing good. I finished my bevy. Now I just have water. So, if you haven't already, drink some water. It's good for you, promise. We're doing some quests. We finished the... I don't think we finished the DLC, but it's... Wait, is it? Is there another one? It says there's an objective there. Whoa. Finished a peach iced tea. Ooh, that sounds yummy. I don't like the fruit peaches, but I like peach flavor stuff. No, 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 no. Okay. Is it this? This is the Slaver Base. I'm drinking, I don't know what it's called or what's in it, but I think it has mango. Yeah. Oh, I don't have my shield up yet. Hey. I don't know why these guys don't have snipers. Let's see, what did I do over the weekend? We went, oh, Ven and I went on a hike. And, usually the parks around here have like paved roads. But this one didn't. Oh, I'm missing. Hold on. Ah! No Granada! No Granada! Come here. They Dodged.
Got them.
Jeebus. What am I doing? Oh. This one didn't. So you were just like, okay, let's follow the trail. Oh my goodness. Let's follow the trail, see where it goes. And it kept going. And I was like, are we still on the path? And then the path kept getting narrower and narrower. I was also wearing sandals, like not hiking shoes, because we thought it would just be a pleasant walk. It kept going. We thought, like, the lady that was hanging out there, we were like, where's the path? And then she was like, oh, it's just there past that side. It goes around. And I was like, and we were like, okay, thank you. So we went, and then we were walking, and then we passed by this like fallen tree. I went under it. It was the kind where you can like go under it. So we were like, oh yeah, the path leads through here, this fallen tree. Let's just go under it. And we kept going, but then past that tree, the path kept getting narrower and narrower. The path was like, at first enough for like maybe 4 people to walk side by side, right? And then it slowly got narrower and narrower to the point where Ven and I had to go like single file. I was leading and Ven was behind me. And then it just kept getting narrower and narrower to the point where the brush was like hitting my legs as we were walking. And then we kept like almost to the point where you had to walk sideways. And I was like, is this still a path? Like, when does it go around? So we were like, I don't know about this anymore. Like, it was supposed to just be a mile, right? But then, yeah. We were just really used to it being paved. Oh my goodness, there's 2 of them. Wait. Wait. He lived! Oh, because he has a shield. Stop it! It was also very quiet, because like, when you live in the city, you're used to like the sound of cars and like people, civilization, right? But when we got like a couple yards in, it got very quiet. And I was like, I've seen in horror movies when you go on a hike and it's very quiet, that means there's like no wildlife or whatever. You should be scared, right? That means usually there's a predator in the woods. And it was very quiet. And I was like, maybe I'm just paranoid, you know? Maybe it's okay. It couldn't possibly be like that IRL. So now we know if Ellie was in a horror movie, she would not survive. Am I even supposed to be here? Where am I going? Was I just clearing the place? They can come for me. It's fine. Don't say that! Listen! I did all the wrong... I made all the wrong calls. Actually, I didn't listen to my gut at all. Because my gut was like, alright, it's very quiet. There's like no signs of civilization. I don't even hear bird call. And I was just like, okay, but there's a path. Obviously, you just keep following the trail or the path, right? And it'll be fine. And I just kept going. And then there was this thing, it like broke. I think it was like a branch or something broke up on the hill, not on the path, but like in the woods. Something broke and started rolling down the hill where we were walking, and Ven was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "No, probably just a branch." But like it rolled down the hill and disturbing the bushes and stuff. And Ben was like, what was that? And I was like, probably just a branch fell off the tree or something. And we kept going! Oh my god! Yeah, so if we're ever out, just a, just a branch, we are in the woods. Duh. Like, if we're ever out and about, don't let me lead, because I will keep going. Ellie is one of those horror movie people. I'm usually when we watch horror movies, I'm usually the first to be like, turn around, go home. What are you doing? But when I was out there, I was kind of just like, surely, surely it'll wrap around, right? Surely we're already on our way back. Like just through here, right? Right. It took up to the point where the bushes were like getting too narrow to walk forward, and I had to like start sidling, like walking on, I don't know how to call it, but like it got to that point. There was still a trail, mind you. I would have kept going, but then I was like, why is it so narrow? I don't think we're supposed to be here. And then Ben was like, yeah, let's turn around. And I was like, okay. In my head, my brain was telling me we could keep going. It's all I still see a path, you know? But it's very obvious that nobody has been this way for the path to widen enough. So at some point, other people turned around. We just kept going. So yeah, I didn't research the trail at all. Then just drove us to that park, and then I was like, let's go and walk. So yeah, that was my weekend. We went on a hike. I was in sandals too. I had blisters when we came home. Why I decided to go on a hike wearing sandals? Who knows, man. I was not dressed for it either. I had like these cute jeans too. It has like flower embroidery on the leg, and it got dirty, and I was like, I'm not prepared for this hike. But wait, I still went. I still led. A little bit more and you would have appeared in the next season of From, right? Had the fallen branches and everything, or fallen tree and everything, but there was no crows, because we didn't hear any birds. No birds, no crickets, no bugs. The only thing we did hear was like the pitter patter. We thought it was raining, but it wasn't. It was just like stuff falling from the trees, like pollen or something. Who knows? maybe I'm not Ellie anymore, guys. What if the real Ellie is in a different dimension and now I'm here? Determination, Ellie's no quitter. Exactly. Don't let me lead. Don't let me be in the front, because I will keep going. Delivery update. Still no word from our malignant gnome friend in Harko. I have tried many times to raise him on the Communinet, but the bastard does not pick up. At this point, I don't give a shit whether the buzzness calls back or not. What's buzzness? Is that a word? If that means we're stuck with 70 kilos of fresh slave meat, so whoa. They eat slaves? He knows the new price. He can pay it, or he can go back to drudging street kids and stealing livers. Okay, so don't be homeless in Harko, I guess, or you'll lose a liver. We can use that old refrigeration module to keep the meat from stinking, but it needs a reliable power source. Does that Buzniz cousin of yours still squat in the old testing station to the east? Oh boy. Eating what? Eating malas. Forests are usually quiet because the occasional rare woodpecker. I thought we'd hear like crickets or like some kind of bug, some buzzing maybe, some birds flapping, but like none. Actually, the only bird we saw one bird. It was like a small little thing, little brown thing, but it was on our way back. It was it was towards civilization. The deeper in we got, the quieter it got, and it was very unnerving. But I was just like, oh, we're detoxing. We're detoxing from civilization. It's fine. So yeah, that was our adventure over the weekend. I hope you guys had a more peaceful... Crickets are at the more open fields. What am I thinking of? It's like a bug that yells at you. Not cicadas. There's other bugs that yell at you. But yeah. Where's the testing station? Find the testing station. Ah. That. Not possible to place. Hello? Vehicle? Anyways, what did you guys do over the weekend? I think it was east? Yeah. My weekend was interesting. It was it felt short. Shorter than usual. Which usually means you did a lot, right? If your weekend feels short, it means you had fun as well. That's how it works, right? I feel like there was like more that I wanted to do. We also went to the hardware store for a shovel. Perfectly innocent reasons. Not burying a body or anything, but they already have... Okay, so in the hardware store, they already have like Halloween decorations set up, and also my neighbor has started decorating for Halloween. But there's this skeleton that is like a DJ, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Let me go take a video. And then as soon as I walked up to it, it stopped. It stopped working. And I was like, oh. No video allowed for Ellie, I guess. It was like head bobbing and like doing the DJ thingy. It hates me, I guess. Where's the entrance to this? Is it this? Is this the way in? Stop! No help. No helping, no helping. Oh, shoot. Die! Shy. Yeah, it was shy. No paparazzi. I couldn't record. I wanted to record him. Send him to my Snapchat, but he was like, no. Have I been here? Find the container with spare parts. This way. These testing stations are basically training for... Is that a person? No, it's not. I'm just... For the deep desert. Where's your head? Oh. Oh. Should be easy to find. Where's the body part? Oh. Die! Whoa. Lighting? Hello? Maybe I shouldn't have. Oh. 71.2 kilos of assorted slave viscera. Heart, lungs, livers, and pancreases. God damn. Interact. This one? This is 71 kilos? Ew. Now I gotta deliver it. Bruh. I gotta go to Arakeen. I'm going to Arakeen with this. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, spaghetti-o. Heal up. So, I was saying too, I want to go back to this trail when I'm properly dressed, you know? Like, when I actually have hiking boots. Hiking boots and proper pants. Not just... Stop! Not just my jeans. Because I like walking and I like having things to look at. It was like near a lake, I think. So there was stuff to look at first, and then there wasn't anymore. There was also, okay, so we thought it was like an okay trail because there were a group of boys who went in ahead of us. So we were like, oh, there's a trail, because, yeah, they had, like, fishing gear and stuff. They were going fishing. And so they went into the woods, and then we were like, oh, there is a trail. And we asked that one lady, and she was like, it's just through there. So we went, and then we didn't see the boys. That should have been hint number 1. We didn't see the boys. We heard them at first, and then it got really quiet. So obviously we passed them, right? I just kept going. That's all I can say. Like, the boys that went in ahead of us, they're gone. We don't see them ahead of us at all. They probably found where to fish at. Who knows? But yeah. I think the other trails that I've gone on have, like, not paved. It is a pave. It wasn't paved in that trail. It was like dirt, right? Like a dirt path. But usually the trails that I go on, like, they have, it's not, I don't know what to call it. Is it paved? It's like a road. There's also some that are like wood too. Like you're walking on wood planks. That's usually in the environmental protection thingy, like protected swamplands or something. So, yeah. I just got a Twitter DM. There's a lot of scams going on. If I ever DM you saying, hey, download this game, it's not me. So listen. Download this. Sign on to this. I reported your account, blah, 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 blah. Just don't respond to it. Don't respond to it. I never DM people first. If I ever approach you, first, you know it's not me. I never do that. Deliver, oh, okay. Where would this guy be? Chief investigator at the Imperial Consulate. That? I wonder whomst it is. Hey, that's a player. Hello? Is it you? No. Is it upstairs? What is upstairs? Is it you? It's you. Hey.
Well, if it isn't Fenring's pet puzzle box.
Sub-prefect
Last we
Wars.
met, there was a Sardaukar blade against your throat, and I was debating how best to make you scream.
Oh. That would have been a big mistake, Taurus. Good thing your boss has better instinct.
Careful, prisoner. I might start thinking you're
Prisoner?
trying to scare me.
How about we get the job done, and then we can get back to threats and promises. We both want the same thing, a killer off the streets. This is very diplomatic. I would say this. Because I'm diplomatic.
Truth is
I love
what
swamp
I'm
trails that
after
have
as
those
well.
planks.
But
It's
words
very...
are easy. Actions will tell me if you mean it.
It's very peaceful, right? Hold on. My eyes. Ugh. The eyes. There was a lot in my previous hometown. Not so much here. I've been looking for one in my area. Haven't really gone exploring yet. No rubbing eyes, but it is. Hold on, I need to turn my lights on. One sec. Okay, I'm back. At least there are a lot of pleasant smelling flora around swamps. Ooh. I think the ones here that I've seen, there's like bird watching. There's a lot of like bird watching sites. They have like little, it's like a oval shaped thingy that you can walk to, and then they have like informational plaques and stuff about like the kind of birds that you can find there. Me with my terrible eyesight, so I wear glasses. Even with my glasses, can never spot them. I really like cardinals. I like vibrant birds. And cardinals like a big red bird. When we were road tripping across the US, I saw one and I was like, that's my favorite bird and it's my first time seeing it in person. Wah! Swamps, all I know is farmland. Are you able to go on farms? Do they have farm tours where you can like play with their cattle? We have to move fast.
We don't have time for guesswork. But rushing breeds mistakes, and mistakes mean more blood on the streets.
Next.
This killer is methodical, precise, and they won't stop until the job's done.
It's me.
There's a pattern
Actually,
to the victims. Find it, and you might catch them in the act. If the killer's still here, and we believe they are, then this is our best and maybe only chance to stop them. And make no mistake, if the Bennett Tleilaxu are involved, this isn't just a string of murders. It's a purge, carefully planned and devastating. A threat not only to Arrakeen, but to the stability of the entire Imperium.
the guy that was like that recorded those two officers, and was like blackmailing them, he just died out of nowhere, right? Like, I wonder if it's connected. See cardinals occasionally. Lucky. I don't think they're here in my... I don't want to know like the most vibrant birds in every state and like, oh no, am I gonna become one of those bird watchers? Unlikely, but I want to collect... No, I don't. I don't want to collect feathers, but I want to see feathers. The last thing I need is more clutter. I'm already a pack rat, and Ben's already throwing out so much trash. I'm one of those people that finds like cool things, and I'm like, here, would you like a feather? Arch, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Would you like a feather? I found this cool rock. Oh my goodness. Thank you for the prime? Question mark? I saw the announcement, but
Thanks for your support.
there it is.
Arch902 dropped a sub.
Yes. Anyways, where do we start?
There is no we.
There is no way.
You go out and dig. I stay here and wait for the results.
Oh, I do all the work. Got
Don't
it,
come
got
back
it.
empty-handed.
David Conan, right? I love seeing it. What can you tell me about the dead agents?
They were competent, trained, and experienced. But
Oh.
skill only gets you so far when someone's watching your every move. They ran into something or someone they didn't expect. That's why they're dead now. No one's been able to stop whatever's behind this yet.
Wouldn't they be Harco agents dying in Arrakeen? Is that really so strange, or any idea who that may be?
You want suspects? Count Fenring has enemies stacked like
Nice
sandbags.
vibes of this game.
Some want him
Are you a
dead,
Dune fan
some want him
too?
ruined, and the rest are just waiting to see which comes first.
Why are you not leading this investigation yourself? Yeah, why am I
am
doing all
that
the
very
work?
thing, am I not?
Huge Dune fan, me too! Though I'm fairly new. I think I became a Dune fan when the movies came out, and then I started doing research. And then I was waiting for this game to come out. I was playing the other Dune game, the Spice Wars one, because I love management games. Read all the books. I haven't read the books! Even the Sex Nun ones? Oh my goodness. Is that the Sun's books? Spice Wars is super fun. Yeah! It itched the Dune itch that I had. It scratched the Dune itch that I had. But when I saw that this game was coming out, I was like, I need it. The books are amazing. I have the audiobook. And from what I've heard so far, it's pretty cool. There's like a lot of narrators, different narrators. You know what I mean.
The Sheriff of Arrakeen has many opinions. One of them is that I should stay out of his way.
Uh-huh.
For now, it's sufficient that I remain in the shadows.
Okay. So I have to do all the work. Where do you want me to start?
You're not Fenring's only pet. He's got a whole shelf of broken things he likes to wind up and watch. Start with the engineer, Austin Lath, on the upper level of the Seleucid Bull. The last two victims were known associates. He must be mixed up in this somehow.
A murder mystery. Where do I
He's
start?
not out on the floor with the common drinkers, if that's what you're thinking.
Okay.
Lath sticks to the back rooms. Quiet, curated, and expensive enough to keep the rabble
There's
out.
back rooms? I didn't know there were... Yeah, I didn't know there were back rooms.
Of course not. They are restricted to patrons of higher standing than prisoner.
Hey, listen.
You'll have to speak with the barman on the upper level of the Seleucid Bull,
Listen.
Alistair Chin. Either he or their security man, Ugo Firenze, can provide access.
Firenze. Is that the guy that talks very slow with a heavy accent? This Lath character doesn't sound much like an agent.
Agent doesn't mean what you think here. Fenring's people aren't all cloak and dagger types.
Impressive that you did all
More
your
like a
art design and
specialized
rigging.
bunch
Looks
of
good.
killers
Thank
and
you.
survivors. You fit in better than you realize.
I was sitting on this model for like a year before I used it. Because I'm indecisive. Do you have any idea who might be behind this? Didn't we ask this already? Anyone else I should talk to besides the barkeep and the bouncer?
Lath had an assistant, Hester Krimt.
My God.
Talk to her. She's a smart girl. Does most of his work, then earns her hazard pay swatting hands from randy officers on the upper level of the Bull.
Randy is not a name?
We have a prevailing theory, yes. You've just come from Carthag, have you not?
Yes.
Then you felt it. The way the air there hums. Like the place is still screaming. That wasn't war. Wasn't Harkin and spite. That was Tleilaxu work. Precise.
We're
and
digging
measured
deeper into
erasure.
this.
And these killings bear the
Then
same
it's
signature.
Henrik mentioned the Tleilaxu. I thought Carthag went up in a riot. Some drunk with a lasgun hit a shield.
Makes a tidy cover story, wouldn't you say?
Agree.
The Tleilaxu had a secret foothold under Carthag.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it. Hidden labs. Vaults full of nightmares. Things that don't belong on any world. Then someone found it. And when it wasn't secret anymore, they burned the city to cover their tracks.
So then why are they building a new one? Why didn't anyone make sure they were all gone? Bruh. Who found it? Was it one of the Count's agents?
It would seem that the Tlilaxu believe that, yes. I believe the exact who of it doesn't really matter anymore. For the Tlilaxu,
It was me.
a single
The old
breach
me.
warrants annihilation.
That's
They'll
why
burn
I'm
the whole house down
That's why
just to
I'm
kill the mouse.
That's why I'm a coffee. And if they think some mice got away, they'll burn the whole house down just to kill the mouse. And if they think some mice got away,
Then they're not done burning. They'll keep going house by house, room by room, name by name, until the scent's gone and the ash
why don't they
settles.
work together? This is clearly a threat. I had to Google what Randy meant. What does it mean? Share with the class, please.
If only I had a dossier and a drink menu. Find the man. You'll learn
It's a
more
man.
in 5 minutes than I could tell you in 10.
Sexually aroused or excited? Oh. Okay.
Should
Understood.
you require further guidance, return to me.
I need a lot of guidance. To the Silicon Bowl. To the bar. Wish I could run. Hello. Oh, that's my friend. My CSE friend. Oh, shall we stretch our fingies? Everybody? Hold up. Oh no. I unclipped my little Pikmin that I have attached to my mic and it fell off. Extend your arms. Extend your fingers. Slowly curl them in. And then curl that in more to form a fist. And then curl your fist in towards your wrist. Feel that stretch. That's the carpal tunnel going away. I think that's what it is. Stretch. Oh, I popped my arm. Ignore that. Okay. Okay. Wiggle your fingers. Make sure they're all there. Count them. Good? All good? Alright. Let's go. It's important to take breaks. Don't forget to drink water. Also wiggle your toes. Make sure they're there too. He said upstairs in the, where would that be? Talk to this guy, right? Hey.
Hello!
Hello!
Welcome to the Matador room, where the spirit of Caladan steps into the ring, poised, unshaken, and noble to the end.
Into the ring?
Here we pay tribute to Duke
I feel like
Polus
we've-
Atreides, the Matador of Honor.
We've gone
the
through this
blade wrapped
dialogue
in
before.
velvet. He... alas. But as the sea shapes the shore, then we have done our job.
We have done
Welcome
our
home,
job.
Caladanian.
Okay, I'm looking for your private rooms.
Believe me, I would love to usher you in and cause a scandal. But unless your house's sigil is on the registry, you will have to enjoy this floor with the rest of us wretches.
Rules are rules, but I'm not here for the ambiance. Following a lead in that room matters. I respect the velvet rope. But today I'm stepping over it. With your blessing would be best. This one.
If velvet ropes could talk, they would
Not
say,
even for a
"No
charmer."
exceptions. Not even for a charmers. Try another angle. Besides, the room is on lockdown. I'm just the gatekeeper here.
Lockdown. Is the agent dead?
A minor medical incident with a patron. We are grateful for your patience.
That's all you can tell me?
Of course, discretion and propriety forbid me from disclosing the activities of our patrons. You understand.
Sub-Prefect Torres sent me. Oh, we're pulling names now. He believes the one I seek is in imminent danger. I don't care about your propriety. Okay, that's definitely not.
Thors sent you.
I'm looking for an engineer called Austin Leith. Where it is, he's a regular.
Yes, we know Master Leith well.
He's in danger.
Alas, he is the subject of the
Oh,
unfortunate
he is dead.
medical incident I spoke of.
Minor, you said.
Yes, but that was before you identify yourself as the sub-prefect's agent.
He's talking faster, at least. And now?
I
He's
regret
dead.
to inform you that the engineer has suffered the most conclusive of a health setbacks.
Suffered the most conclusive of health setbacks is another way.
Well, let's
An
just say he
interesting way to
won't
say
be
he's
ordering
dead.
more drinks anytime soon.
Was anyone else? Okay, what are you doing with the body?
Currently, I am speaking with you. Soon I will attend to Master Leith.
Sneak blatantly!
Master Leith was na familia. But without kin, there is no inquiry, no scandal. Just a body and a silence. I
So-
leave a glyph for the Beggars Guild. They take care of the rest. Efficient, discreet.
There's a beggars guild?
Psha, how else do you expect beggars to decide the turf boundaries and resolve disputes?
Oh, so even the beggars have a system, okay. With a knife?
In the old days, yes. But the Duke does not
So-
abide violence in the streets.
Do we go back to Taurus? Was anyone else seen entering?
Master Leith, he was not
about
exactly
the-
a social creature.
The guard?
But he wasn't a monk either. Few faces came and went, trusted ones at that. Well, Alistair, the steward,
Alistair?
kept him fed and pickled. The wine merchant, Ambrose Lucifera, would sometimes stop in for a glass or a five. He and Leith share a taste for esoteric reactionary literature. Oh, and his assistant, Hester Klimt. Well, she is the one who actually keeps the planetologist office running. If Leith had a shadow, it was her.
What is reactionary esoteric? I feel like our character is getting distracted like me.
She is a blend of outdated political theory, mystical dogma, and a romantic delusion.
Romantic
Written by
delusion.
fringe thinkers for fringe audiences. Master Leith's attentions were ever diverted by it, and proletarian erotica.
Smut?
Proletarian erotica. Titillating stories about the field hands and mechanics, usually. Grimy rendezvous in tool sheds and bunkhouses. Factory workers rotting
God.
behind oil drums while quoting dialectics. It's someone's version of liberation, I suppose.
He seems well versed in the subject. Are you also a fan of fan fiction smut? I still need to see the body.
Very well. But may I ask what is it you are looking for?
Honorable, because no one deserves to die like that without some kind of reckoning. I'm not sure if this was an accident or suicide, Hugo. It might have been a conspiracy. It was a murder!
You are right.
We went with
of
the
course.
honorable choice.
If it was the murder, then Master Leith deserves some inquiry. I am
We gotta be
sure.
thorough.
Your forbearance reminds me of our beloved Duke. Long may he live.
My what? My arm workout for the day is done mixing frosting. What are you making? Okay.
What a conspiracy! The man was cooked on Vanta draft. and he liked to play revolutionary between relapses.
Vanta drop?
Ah, very well. I grant
chose
you
for me, I didn't
access to
click.
the lounge, but I'll make it quick.
Mind if I run a quick scan in there? Might pick up something we'd otherwise miss. I don't have my scanner.
Please,
Friend's birthday
wave
cake?
your little wand around.
Are you gonna post it in Bree's
You
Discord? I
will
want to
see
see.
what I saw. The trail of a man who burned from the inside out.
I don't have a scanner. I better go. No. Ugh! Each time I need a scanner, I don't have it on me. Bruh. Bruh. Oh, this door. I was always wondering what that was. Whoa. Whoa. What was that? No more surprise doors, at least. Hello, game? There's something here. That's a bug, right? Bug. Something. I can't type. Something here. I am colliding. They'll know what that means. With something here. Okay. Yep. Okay. Enter private room. Are you sure you want to travel to this room? By the decree of Sub-Prefect Torbs, you are allowed to use your scanner there. Yeah, let's go get a scanner. Can I craft one? Nope. Okay, let's go make one. Ugh. Maybe they'll give me one. You think they'll give me one? Maybe they'll give me one. There's a line! That was a proper bug report, right? They'll figure it out. Hey.
If you're hearing this, well, I didn't get away.
Uh-oh.
I'm Austin Lathe, engineer. The guy they call when they want things done, not questions asked. There was this one chance I could have said no, but I didn't. I crunched the numbers, fine-tuned them. That was all it took to bring down the ceiling on 1,000,000 lives. I didn't press the button, but I knew it was coming. I just didn't want to disappoint the guy who asked. They gave me a new title, a nicer coat, called me Na Familia. But after that, they wouldn't look me in the eye. And the thing I hear
You got
over and over,
played.
it's not the blast, it's my silence. When I found this pamphlet stuck behind a sink, you dig, you sweat, you die, and your work builds opera houses on worlds you'll never see. There was a sandfly stamped on the back, razor wings, sickle-shaped stinger. What bleeds in silence must one day sing. Didn't get it then, but those words stuck.
No one else find this? Interact. Chaos of stained papers litter the table. It would look as if it had been stormed through if it weren't for the empty cups standing undisturbed. Look at the cups. Is this it? The cups look soiled. Austin Lathe either was an exceptionally heavy drinker or he may have had some company. Why did I immediately already forget what Ugo was talking to me about. Look at the cup on the left. Save for some dark dregs at the very bottom, a strong aggressive smell comes off from it. It's a bit sticky to the touch. Look at the cup in the middle. Empty. You can smell a faint scent of spiced wine. The right? Empty. Smells of spiced wine. Subtle reddish stain can be seen on the rim when held in the light. Okay. You take a step back. Look at the documents. Scrolls are spread out on the table. Most are covered in scribbles and shapes, crumpled, dirtied. One stands out in neat letters on top of the stack. Look at the messy stack of scribbled scrolls. Sketches and undecipherable schematics. It's too chaotic or too expert for you to make sense of it. Ah, our past lives were not whatever this is. Look at the neat parchment on the top of the stack. It's made of spice paper. It reads, "Wings in the dark. Notes towards a future without chains. Manifesto of some sort." The sandflies? Conclude examination. That's it? My packages came! Yay! Was someone holding it? Stress relieved. Okay. Okay. So he was poisoned. Oh my gosh, is this him? The body! Austin Lath's gaunt frame lies slumped on the bench, skin pallid and waxy. Salt streaks mark where his final sweat dried hours ago. Ew. Examine the upper body. No signs of trauma. Examine hands. Assess cause of death from posture and state. Let's do hands first. Analyze hands for environmental clues. Mentat! Why didn't they send a mentat? I guess that's us. Fingernails uneven and chewed down, an unusual nervous habit for a man of his station. No defensive wounds or residue of spilled wine. The fingertips bear faint gray smudges from paper handling. Okay. Examine the head. Eyes closed with heavy bags, cheeks hollow and sallow. Faint capillaries on his nose hint at long years of drink. Not exactly the picture of health. Look into my eyes. Oh, we did the mouth? Froth clings to the corners of his mouth, dried to a faint crust. Without medical expertise, what this indicates eludes you. Poison! Examine the eyes. Ew. His eyes remain closed. They're actually open. They're actually open. Lids sunken with heavy bags. Corneas are faintly clouded, the mark of sudden systemic failure. He was poisoned! Examine something else. Clothing. Well-made garments, finely tailored but worn and unchanged for days. Pockets are empty, showing no recent use. Infer behavioral pattern from dress and state. Extended isolation, no recent change of clothes. This makes me feel like, what's it called? Sherlock Holmes? When he's like examining everything. Conclusion or deduction. Blah, 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 blah. No recent change of clothes suggests focus on study or secrecy over personal upkeep. Okay. A book. A thick, well-printed leather-bound tome rests on the table, its spine stamped with a numeral 7. Clearly one of many volumes. Examine the cover. The leather cover bears gilt lettering. Histories of the Imperial Descent, Volume 7, The Ikaz Revolt. Causes, Conduct, and Consequences. Examine the interior. The pages are dense with fine print. Along the edges, faint smudges and a slight discoloration suggests frequent handling. 2 sections are bookmarked. Content probably won't help you solve the case, but the history enthusiasts would enjoy this. Alright, I'm a history enthusiast, kind of. Read the foreword. This volume reaches us under a cloud of censure. Tyrus Mandego completed it while confined in Carthage Gate Prison on Kytane. Volume 7 of the Ikaz Revolt spares neither rebel ambition nor the heavy hand of Imperial reprisal. The Imperium has not authorized this printing. Ooh, a banned book. Recall House Ikaz ties. Possession may invite scrutiny, yet the record of descent is as vital as triumph. The Mendego's pen carves that shadowed history is rare clarity. Or with rare clarity. Okay, I know this. Kaladin remembers Ikaz in sorrow, the wedding of Leto Atreides to Elessa Ikaz. Was meant to bind the two great houses, but ended in blood. The Moritani blades struck more than flesh. They etched a lesson into Atreides' hearts. The Imperium smiles upon tragedy it can exploit. Okay. For the young Duke Atreides, the Ikaz wedding became the silent prologue to a life of caution, revenge, and alliances forged under sorrow. Read the first bookmarked section, Chapter 3, the Circle of Conspiracy. A shadowed circle of Ikazi nobles and merchants formed quietly, meeting in private halls and sealed gardens, their grievances whispered in secrecy. They pooled resources, bribed officials, and courted discontent. Funds and arms moved unseen, hidden among legitimate trade and noble privileges. Okay. Guys, I think my brain turned off. I don't remember what I just read. Hold on. Shadow circle of Ikaz nobles and merchants formed quietly, meeting in private halls and sealed gardens, their grievances whispered in secrecy. They pulled resources, bribed officials, brain cell. It's Taya's turn on the brain cell. And courted discontent, funds and arms moved unseen, hidden among legitimate trade and noble privileges. Okay. Second bookmark section, Chapter 9, Long Shadows. The Ikaz revolt's aftermath rippled through the Landsraad, sowing distrust among noble houses, wary of rising dissent and hidden conspiracies. Imperial policies hardened with increased surveillance and harsher penalties as fear of rebellion reshaped political alliances and court intrigues. Okay. Oh. Hold on. Culturally, the revolt left scars. Songs of loss and caution passed quietly among the people, a whispered reminder that defiance invites ruin. Veer cover. That's enough reading for now. A stamp on the back reads, printed without imperial sanction by Lantern and Ash Press. Read in secrecy, burn in silence. Okay. Wine carafe? Plastone carafe? Sits empty on the table, its open mouth carrying only a faint scent of spiced wine. Examine the label. The label written in neat hand reads, Casirac Red. What is that? 10,194 AG. Thank you for the brain cell, I'm gonna need it. It's up to you, Taya. A rare Caledonian vintage, briny and mineral, kissed by ocean winds. Okay. Need to get... I should have come with a scanner. Ah. What else did we not see? Oh, this? Quiet meal for a quiet end. The food sits cooling, mute witness to a man who avoided the crowd and death that would not wait. Examine the food. The meal is barely disturbed. Braised slig Caledonian pundi rice and stuffed olives. An off-world indulgence. Okay. We've gathered everything, right? Oh. Limb collapse, mouth slightly open, suggests sudden systemic failure rather than violence or prolonged agony. So poisoned. He was poisoned. Include examination. It's this cup right here. This one. But why? There's more people to investigate. It seems. Watch me do it in the wrong order and they're like, go examine him again. There's more to look at. The murder mystery. What can we conclude? What can we deduce? Oh my goodness, that reminds me. There's gonna be another gacha. Not gacha. Yes, gacha. But not from MiHoYo. I don't think. And you're a detective. I think I signed up for like the I signed up for it to join ahead of time, but I've been looking for a game to play on mobile because I quit Genshin. So maybe when that comes out, I'll play that. Hey, I remember streaming Genshin, but it took a while. I didn't join immediately, but for that one, I might. What game? I don't remember what it's called. It's not out yet. I think it comes out next year. When I get the name, I'll let you know. Is it you?
Oh, I swear to the stars. If you're here to ply me with a drink, I'm going to shove shards of glass in your eyes. I'm sorry. Am I sorry? No. No, I'm not. Let me be plain. This is the worst possible time. I do not wish to speak. Kindly go away, please.
I've been in Austin's room. I would like to ask a few questions.
You've seen...
I'm the detective.
Very well. Let's get this over with. My name is Hester Klimt. Ask your questions.
Can you tell me how you know him?
I am...
How do you know the victim?
I was his assistant. We worked together at the Imperial Planetologist's office. That's the extent of our relationship.
What sort of man was he?
He was my boss. I didn't know him outside of the workplace. I can't be of any more help than that.
But you were his shadow. What sort of boss was he?
Adequate. He was... adequate. At any rate, he's dead now, leaving me sorting out a mountain of chaos. Damn him. Sorry.
Suspect number one. Just kidding. Just kidding. You have no other insight to impart? Mm-hmm.
No. And what does it matter? There's no foul play.
There is
Unless
foul
you
play.
have some compelling evidence or medical training, I have to deal with the fallout now.
The game was called Silver Palace?
Excuse me. I
leaving.
have to prepare.
I didn't click it!
I have to clean out his office. I have to prepare for his replacement. There's too much.
Okay. Find a way to prove foul play. What? 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 Silver Palace. Look it up. It looked really cool because of the setting. It's like very fancy. The buildings. I like the layout. From what I can remember. Like a modern fantasy, kind of? Anything new here? No? No? Oh my goodness. Loading takes forever. Just making sure I don't need to do anything else here. But I like the design so far from what I've seen. The main characters look cool. And it's purple. It's like very rare for the male main character to look just as good. Usually the female MC has more design. Has a better design, but I like them both. Let me out. True, usually girlies slay. I like them both though. They look good. And then the side characters that we've seen so far are really nice too. It's been a while. I want to check after stream if there's been an update to it. We have a body. So from what I'm gathering, he's not actually La Familia. They just gave him that title and then... Yeah. Oh. Is it done? Oh, it's still there. Not here. The designs do look good. I really like it. So where do we go? Upstairs? It seems we go upstairs. I think they said there was someone. Who else did we need to talk to? Not upstairs. Downstairs? In the alleyway? What? I'm lost. There's a map, silly. Is that the appearance changer lady? Hello, face lady. While we're here. Hey.
We meet again.
I'm investigating the death of Austin Leith.
I can't say I know the name, but I'm afraid my head has been buried in matters concerning my clinic of late. What's this to do with me?
I suspect foul play. I'd like to test the veracity of that with your expertise.
A possible murder, then. I see.
A murder mystery.
That is interesting. At least morbidly so. Today has taken an interesting turn. I'll do the best I can without a body to directly examine.
Do you want to...
What can you tell me about the state of the cadaver?
I can sneak you in. I got in. I wasn't supposed to be there. I can get you in too, probably. Speaking of murder mystery, there's a movie coming out. I don't know when, but the next Knives Out movie is coming out. And I love those movies. So I'm very excited for that. Murder mystery. Found froth around the cadaver's mouth. Eyes of the corpse were discolored.
That could definitely support suspicions of poison. However, there are myriad other medical reasons that could cause such discoloration.
How might I confirm a poison theory?
A poison snooper would be the most expedient method.
Do you have a poison snooper to spare?
I'm afraid I don't have any snoopers at all. My supplies are lacking in general at the moment.
How would I acquire one?
If I knew that, I'd have one already. But I'm not exactly familiar with the more illicit sources of goods in Arrakeen.
Wait, what about the mouth
Hello
one?
again. Are we... I can't say I know the name. A possible murder, then. Today has taken...
Froth.
That makes me suspect poison. However, without bodily samples to test, I cannot confirm. A poison snooper... I'm afraid I don't...
It all leads to the same one. We must find a poison snooper. There's this... Ooh, that guy. There was another one, wasn't there? There was another place I could have gone to. Now it's gone. Okay. A poison snooper. Guess I have to prove my suspicions. A person? It is a person. What? Hello. Hello.
Hello again.
Not them. You?
Oh, hey there, friend. Looking for anything special?
In point of fact, I am. I've never heard this phrase. In point of fact.
Well, color me curious. You've got a specific purpose in your eyes. What are you looking for?
I'm in the market for a poison snooper. I don't know if I should bring up the name here.
You're in luck. I just so happen
Insufficient
to have
funds.
a snooper. I could part with it for a proper pittance of Solari, or perhaps some alternative
I have
form of
salvaged
payment.
metals. I have so many.
Perhaps it would. You
Perhaps.
suspect correctly. I think we can make a deal.
I get to keep my Solari. The codex was updated. Where's that? Codex. What did we get? What's new? What's new? What's new? What's new? What's new? What's new? What was the update? What? Do you mean? This one? What? How do we know which one was updated? Huh? Okay. Guess we can go back. People just really think he drank himself to death. Lied. Oh, I didn't. Collide. Back into this room, poison snooper. He sabotaged the house generators. We're wide open. They have little snippets from the book. Alright, how do I use this? Use the poison snooper. Can I? No. How do I use it? It's handheld. It would be in the cups, wouldn't it? The poison snooper. No trace of toxin within the emptied vessel. Ew. Would it? Oh, I can't use it there. It's in this cup! Flashes green for all 3 glasses, indicating no sign of poison. All of them don't have poison? The documents were poisoned. Okay, I guess the food. Indicating no poison. He wasn't poisoned. Unless there's something that I missed. The book was poisoned. The poison snooper glows red among the page edges. Contact poison. The book itself became Late's executioner. We touched the book. Poison report from Austin's book. Interrogate witnesses again in the upper Seleucid bowl. Who gave him the book? We dead? Oh no. I just got here. Or nor. Or nor, or nor, or nor. Alright. Assistant. Tell me now. What? There was another guy, right? Was there someone else we didn't talk to? Okay, last stream I was talking about how I had chicken thawed and I was gonna cook fried chicken. Well, I failed. It was horrible because the recipe called for baking powder and cornstarch. Completely forgot about the cornstarch and I didn't have baking powder, so I used baking soda. And it was horrible. It was inedible. Truly inedible. Girl, no, right? I've made wings before and it was delicious. But listen, I didn't have the ingredients and I was like, I could just change it out. So it was inedible and I had to throw it out. Yeah. And then Ben was like, would you like some consolation fried chicken? And he brought me home some fried chicken. And then I had some more thought and I made it again. But this time, I made it correctly. I did not use baking soda this time. I made it correctly, but then went and bought cornstarch and baking powder, but I forgot to use them. So they weren't as crispy because it's the stuff that I forgot to add. And I had it too. I had it this time, but I didn't. I forgot about them. So it was edible at least, and it was good, but it could have been better. So now I'm thawing chicken again. This is gonna be attempt number 3. I'm gonna make it properly this time. I will. I'll make it properly. Is it here? Is there gonna be a cutscene here? Hey, I have to talk to you.
You? Again? You're like a rash. Sorry. Was that hurtful? Not hurtful enough.
This girl.
How is this supposed to go? I'm in over my head. Not in the proper state of mind, and I promise there will be collateral damage if I have to open my mouth.
Evidence suggests Austin was murdered. You're a suspect. Just kidding. What can you tell me about him?
Murder? That's impossible. I don't... How could you... How?
He was poisoned. So you learned how to make orange chicken? Ben's made orange chicken before.
No, there's clearly been a mistake. The situation is insane enough without these wild theories.
Your breathing rate has changed. I suspect you're holding information back.
All right, you nerve-wracking hound. Let me think. Perhaps I do know something that would help. Ask your questions.
Did Austin exhibit any strange behavior leading up to his murder?
Stranger than usual? He did become extra agitated. Paranoid, even. Particularly after
a woman.
Meeting with a strange woman.
A woman! It's always a woman.
A redhead. He met with her in a closed room for hours. He came out, distressed, immediately ordering a Thopter transport for the following day.
Who was the woman? Where did he go after meeting with the redhead?
I don't know if I should...
I support women's wrongs! Isn't she a redhead? Isn't this technically a redhead? Or do they mean actually red? This is vital to solving his murder.
He had a secret workshop in the Eastern Shield Wall. I don't know why he chose such a remote location. I don't know what he worked on there. I never saw him work.
Huh.
I'll send you the
I thought you were his shadow. Now Austin's murder is confirmed. I have some more questions.
I understand. Let's get this over with.
Do you have an alibi? Why would anyone want him dead?
Murder. I just can't believe... Well, the more I think about it, someone murdering Austin isn't so unbelievable. I don't know what to believe.
She's like, I can't believe... Well, I can believe it. That makes sense. Yeah. Let's just take a breath and start with what he was like in the workplace.
Austin wasn't a conventional boss. He rarely came into the office. A dysfunctional workplace, to say the least. No guidance, little teaching, nothing. With the absence of Cyprian Io, I've been taught nothing. I've had to figure it out as I go, running the day-to-day affairs in the chaos. In essence, I'm the acting planetologist of Arrakis. It's ludicrous. I'm in over my head. Damn Austin. Or rest in peace. Or both. Losing my mind.
We know a planetologist. His name's Derek. And he's charming. How do you think Austin kept his position?
I've long suspected someone owes him a major favor. That's just speculation. You should understand, Austin was a brilliant engineer, as near as I can tell. But something shattered him at some point. He's a shadow of who he was.
Trauma. What do you mean?
It wasn't any one thing or any describable clue. Just a million tiny intangibles taken in while being around him. Something had him guilt-racked.
Oh, wow.
Once I saw him sobbing over a set of city planning sketches. He didn't see me. He avoided his work and skill set. It made him feel guilty or afraid.
Is he an
I'm
architect?
not sure how he made ends meet, but the job title remained and money kept coming in.
Do you have an alibi? Where were you at the time of the murder?
An alibi for Austin's murder? I was out on business that Austin had been neglecting.
So suppose someone can confirm that?
I'm afraid the only proof I can show are piles of hastily prepared paperwork.
It's a weak alibi, but I'll accept it. Who else might have had access to the room where Austin was found?
Alistair and Ugo have access
Alistair,
to any
that
room
one.
in a solution ball, of course. I know I've seen Ambrose Lucifera in and out of there.
That one too. Do any of them strike you as capable of murder?
Isn't that the thing about murder? We're often surprised by who is capable. I suppose Ugo and Alistair might have their own shady dealings. But I can't imagine them killing someone in their own establishment. And Ambrose seems too ridiculous. I don't know.
Huh. Can you tell me anything about the book that was found in the room?
Was that some sort of revolutionary manifesto? I don't know much about the book itself, other than Austin was reading it obsessively recently.
Was there anything in his actions or demeanor that you'd connect with the text?
Not specifically. Well,
out with it!
I don't know if it is any way connected, but Austin's political demeanor was becoming more, I suppose, militant. Towards the end, he also seemed to be hanging out about more and more shady and dangerous-looking people.
He was getting
I have no
radicalized.
idea who they were.
There was another option.
Was that some sort of...
What aren't you telling me?
Manifesto? Easy there, you maniac.
Easy there.
I'm not hiding anything. I just didn't have any conversations with... I don't know if it is any way connect... Towards the end.
Okay. I've stressed her out enough. You're Ambrose, aren't you?
If it isn't my would-be assassin with a heart of gold, or perhaps silver or bronze, I can always count on you to liven up a mundane evening.
Oh my god. Girl. Bronze? Maybe my Overwatch rank, but come on. I'm here to inquire about Austin Lath's death.
Austin's
I totally
dead?
forgot to talk to this.
But I only saw him recently. So full of life.
I'm sorry. I know this might come as a terrible shock.
Wait. Is this a potential murder investigation? How charmingly macabre! Do you really think someone murdered poor Austin? Shh, don't spoil it. Yes, I simply must be involved. How might I facilitate your sleuthery?
This is my sleuthery. You wanna be my what is it called? My Watson? Elementary, my dear. Watson, is that what it is? Are you sober enough to answer questions?
Now see here, I am only midway through today's debauch, and am of sound enough mind to answer the queries of both of you.
I love
there are
him.
two of you, yes?
Yeah.
I just, oh, do lighten up. This isn't a funeral, it's a possible murder scene.
Right, because those two are, oh gosh. Sir, please get out of the shot! I have a few questions.
I've already imbibed several libations in dear Estim's memory.
Ambrose Lucifer is quite the name. We're besties now. Austin. He got the name wrong!
Yes. Yes, of course. Carry on.
What can you tell me about
My
Austin?
occasional drinking companion has an education in engineering. If anything, he's even more of a man of leisure than I.
How do you mean?
He has an advisory position at the Imperial Planetologist's office, though I don't believe he's ever set foot in that office. He's here more often than even I. If you ask me, and you have, he curried the favor of someone powerful to receive such a cushy job.
Yes. What else can you tell me about him?
Well, his carnal pursuits are prodigious.
Oh.
He worked his way through nearly all of Arakeen's eligible ladies.
Oh.
The man knows how to pitch woo prolifically.
Prolifically. He was a I think I'm done here.
It's been a most unusual pleasure. Should you discover any more juicy details, I'll be here, keeping vigil for poor Austin.
Okay.
Ah, the return of our intrepid sleuth hound. Has the plot thickened?
The plot
I do
has
say the
thickened.
plot has thickened.
Who's the other guy? The other guy I have to talk to. I don't remember the name. A reason to believe that Austin was poisoned. Thoughts?
Why, I should think you'd be the resident expert on poisons with your involvement in the farcical plot to assassinate me.
Farcical?
That was you, wasn't it?
Farcical? Hold on. Farcical? Farcical. Relating to or resembling farce, especially because of absurd or ridiculous aspects. A farcical tangle of events. Whoa, learning a lot of big words today. Yes, but I did warn you about the poison.
Just a jest at your expense. All water under the bridge, I assure you. Why, some of my closest friends have tried to murder me at one time or another.
Oh.
Now,
You
what
must
were
be
we talking about?
pleasant. Your thoughts on Austin being poisoned?
A proper murder mystery, and I'm a suspect. How wickedly romantic. Perhaps I felt a deadly envy toward my dear friend.
He wants to be a suspect. Envy over what? This is the guy you want on jury duty, by the way. Guy, are you good? He really wants to be part of the scene. Can someone give him some dialogue? Devs? This guy too? Are they both right there? Hold on. Hold on. Next scene. Next scene. Different angle. They're both right here. This guy and this guy. Just making the main character. Envy over what?
Well, nothing comes to mind. He was a sad sack of wine, whereas I am rather fabulous. Come to think of it, we weren't very close friends.
Oh.
Pshaw, we can hammer out the motive later. I'm just glad to be in the rogues gallery of this caper.
Oh god. Okay, sorry. They keep flashing across my screen and it's startling me. In the rogues gallery of this caper. Can you tell me anything constructive about my poison theory? You're too absurd to be a real suspect. Maybe you're trying to throw me off the scent with this idiocy. You really believe people like you as much as you imagine? Oh, I'm getting distracted. But I want to go through all of these voice lines.
I can say this about poisoning Austin. It would be easy to do. The man had recently developed a bottomless appetite for spiced alcohol. Not everyone can handle vice with the charm and panache that I do. People like Austin turn alcoholic dependency into something depressing. Something terrible haunted that man. 1 part guilt and 2 parts fear of discovery. Shaken well and
Fear of
garnished with
discovery
intrigue.
about what? So, this guy's saying that addiction is okay as long as you're fabulous about it. Got it. Alright. Some valuable wisdom here. Take that under advisement. You're not as bumbling or whimsical as you want others to believe.
My, such a sharp and incisive mind. You're liable to cut yourself on it. I trust you'll keep that little deduction between us.
I want to discuss some of my findings regarding the murder.
Allow me to lend you an ear.
Special.
Maybe two.
Do you know anything about a redhead? Ooh, let's do these first and then that.
Only that they have an improbably high propensity for slapping me, men and women. Though to be fair to them, I deserved it. Oh, do you mean Austin's tremulous little apprentice cowering at the window?
Hester? No, not her.
In that case, no.
He doesn't know about the redhead. What about the sandflies?
I'm afraid I missed out on that bit of gossip. A pity. I did see him reading a Sandflies manifesto recently.
Okay.
I can say that he was rather buried in that book. A recent reading obsession. He even had it open at the bar, barely registering the people around. I was mildly put off by all the finger-licking he did whilst turning the pages. But if moisture is needed on Arrakis, one must simply supply it themselves.
Can you tell me anything about the subject matter of the book?
Oh, yes, that was the most scandalous bit about it. A rather controversial text full of criticisms of the Empire. The title was Histories of Imperial Descent, Volume 7, The Ikaz Revolt, Causes, Conduct, and Consequences Within the Imperium. Or something thereabouts. Come to think of it, he also recently read a banned Sandflies manifesto titled Wings in the Dark, Notes Toward a Future Without Chains.
You're very perceptive. He is very helpful, huh?
Yes, well, I simply must petition my house to change our motto to, for we are high functioning.
A look at his fingers indicated a vicious nail-biting habit. Anxiety,
Yes,
I guess.
his illimitable nervous tick. I can stomach murder and cadavers, but just thinking about that man's poor, tormented cuticles. Ugh. And I'll tell you another thing. He had deep-seated mother issues that bordered on fetishistic.
Mommy issues. Yeah, you do not want this guy as your friend when you die. How do you know?
We can smell our own.
Oh my god! He has... Okay. Thanks.
I shall count the minutes until the next disaster.
Have you been here all day?
Do I get to play the part of a potential suspect? Fun! Yes, I've been at this establishment for most of the day. Sounds sad now that I'm saying it. Anyway,
that's his
the
alibi,
proprietor can
yes.
vouch for me.
Did you notice anyone coming in and out around the time of death?
Well, only the usual assortment of patrons. Nothing noteworthy, I'm afraid.
Okay.
It's been a most unusual pleasure. Should you discover any more juicy details, I'll be here, keeping...
Goodbye, sir. Look at that footwork. Look at that footwork. Oh, ooh, okay. There was one more person. I just don't... What are we looking at? I just don't know. I don't remember who. I'm gonna interview you. Who else was it? Definitely not you.
Very well. What do you want?
I'm covered. Hold on. Can I crouch?
Very well.
I wanna
what
be-
do you want?
I want to be in the shot. I haven't done this, I guess. Derek Shannara is dead. Ah, my face.
He's finally dead. How did... Actually, I don't want to know the details. He will be expunged from the records. Nobody will know he even came to Arrakis. Did you hear, Portavoy?
Portavoy?
We finally win. There is nobody to challenge us for the title of Imperial Planetologist anymore.
Enjoy your pathetic life. Okay, I'm back.
Very well. What do you want?
Questions about Hester Klimt and Austin Laith.
I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about.
They both work at the Imperial Planetologist.
Why are you harassing me? Portifoy, prepare for action.
Not necessary. I'll leave. I'm
Very
not done
well.
here.
What do you want? I'm sure I... Why are you...
Oh, to be a spoiled little boy. Who else? Not Cyprian. Who? You only have to be up here. Not these. It's you. Who is a redhead? Whoa. Okay.
Ah, you are back.
I have more questions.
How can I help?
I'm told Laith was seen with a redhead. Do you know her?
Names and colors. They come and go like a desert winds.
Guy.
If Master Laith was a seen
Speak
with a
faster.
red head, perhaps she was just another storm passing through.
Can't give me anything more than that?
Red hair is common enough. If she had business with Master Laith, I was not privy to it. Some things are best left unspoken, eh?
You know who had red hair? Zentara. Did Laith ever mention enemies or any reason why someone might have a reason to harm him?
He did say something about hating the Harkonnens.
Harkonnens,
That
yeah.
does not make him a special.
That's how I
around
see it
here.
too. Any idea what trouble he may have had with the Harks?
Trouble and the Harkonnens go hand in hand here.
Hand in hand.
Could throw a stick in any direction and hit someone with a grudge against the Baron. But a murder here, right under Hawat's nose, that is not just bold. She is near impossible.
There's been a lot of
You
murders
would
now.
need more than hate or ambition. It would take something special to earn that.
There's been a lot of murders in Arakeen. Poison Snooper lit up when I analyzed his book.
But who would want to kill Master Laith? He was already doing a good job of that himself. Between his taste for that toxic Harkonnen brew he loved so much, and the
What
company he
company?
kept. Your house deserters and ex-Dune men mostly. Not the kind that file taxes or hold court on
You have to
Keitel.
investigate the sandflies.
Master Laith was a creature of habit. Wretched ones. Benders that lasted days. Women and drink until he couldn't see straight.
Public kind of collapse or private? Huh?
Public. Shouting poetry in the gutter. One sock, no shoes. The sheriff, he dragged him in more than
He's a mess.
once. No charges, of course. Not for his kind.
And then?
He would vanish. Poof. Sometimes for days or weeks at a time. Always come back clear-eyed, skin back
He
like
goes
a
to Haga
desert
Basin.
stone. That is when he would hole up in the private room, pour himself a Vanta, crack open one of those revolutionary tomes, and the cycle would begin anew.
For a private room, everyone seems to know his business. You know what he does in there? Who else? You?
Welcome to the Matador Room. If you're here for honesty, I suggest
Alistair, it's you! I have some further questions I want to ask you about the case.
if you must.
His voice is familiar. When was the last time you saw Laith alive?
Saw him when he came in to measure his vantage draft. Fussed with the paw like a chemist balancing a toxin. That was this morning.
Have you seen anyone else come or go from the room?
His assistant Hester and that puffed-up wine merchant Ambrose Lucifera used to intrude, but not lately.
Puffed up
The
wine
last few
merchant.
weeks, he kept the door closed and the bottle closer.
Can you tell me about his choice of reading material?
What was he reading? I don't always keep up. Very heavy, and good for killing ants.
He doesn't know anything about the book. Have you read it?
I'm holding out for the Communinet adaptation. Histories of Imperial Descent Volume 6 was a real hoot.
He's waiting for the audiobook. Do you know anything about a redhead Austin's been meeting?
That narrows it down to half the bad decisions made in this district.
This redhead is very reclusive.
Sorry, I don't make a habit of cataloguing Master Lathe's conquests.
This isn't gossip. I'm asking if she had a name or whether she had a reason to want the engineer dead.
As far as I know, the only one who wanted the engineer dead is the engineer. You'll have to ask his assistant, Hester.
Tell me about Master Lathe.
He was a good customer, generous with his bar tab, which was paid like clockwork at the end of every month.
Paid?
That was my impression. The Solaris were always transmitted by wire from an account with an Arsent transit code.
What's that?
A garrison town in the eastern Haga Basin. Pray you never see the place. It's where the Sardaukar are encamped.
Space Sardaukar? You need to shut down the Espada room. A noble has been murdered.
I believe you are mistaken. Master Lathe is under the influence of something quite spiritual. Vantadraft.
So spiritual
Known
that
side
his
effects
spiritual
include
is not
coma,
here.
confession, and occasionally death.
Oh.
But let's be generous and assume the middle one.
Coma, confession, and occasionally death. The middle one is confession or coma. But he's dead. He's dead. You knew he was dead. Quit playing games. He's dead.
Ugo, we have a report of a patron in the Espada room asking about the green door.
What's this code?
It goes into the back alley. We use it to remove patrons sharing Master Lathe's delicate disposition. With more frequency than one might expect.
Am I about to be removed? Bad romance? Who gains the most from the engineer's death? Sounds like a typical depressed noble. Bad romance?
Master Lathe collected bad decisions like drink tickets. And love was just another excuse to disappear for a night. Or 3.
Who gains the most from the engineer's
You
death?
will have to ask his assistant, Hester Klimt. She catalogues tragedy
I've
like
already
a tax
talked to
collector.
her.
Go spoil her mood.
Mood's already spoiled.
Depressed, yes. However, Master Lathe was anything but typical.
They all think they're different when they true with him.
To
What
start
way
with,
was he different?
Master Lathe wasn't always a noble.
Yes, we gathered that. There's no movement in the far Ferluches. But we heard it in his thing.
Nevertheless, it is a documented fact Master Lathe was a seal-bearing engineer for the Imperial Civic Branch. A bondsman's billet on any world.
And now?
He had been granted an advisory position in the Imperial Planetologist's
Someone placed him there and then killed
a noble
him. But
appointment
why?
on any world.
We appreciate the rare opportunity.
He used to opine on that very subject in great detail when he got deep enough in his cups. The rare opportunity you speak of. Said there was blood on the contract and fine print that no one warned him about. Said the nobility were the rot at the center of everything.
Dangerous words.
Dangerous words? In this town, all words carry knives. Especially ones whispered in shadows.
What kind of shadows are we talking about?
The kind that don't fall with the sun. Master Lathe began to appear with pamphlets that reeked of bad printing. And even worse, ideas. Got cozy with other like-minded maniacs who shared his beliefs
So we go
about
investigate the
noble
sandflies,
rot.
right? It's like... Aha. Prefects of prefectors. Tours! I'm coming! a lot of words were exchanged, I fear. A lot of words that I may or may not remember anymore. This is not the way. Let's hope let's hope I remember, because this will be on the test. Alright. Class, wake up. What did we discuss on chapter 3, page 4?
Report.
I went to the bull. The engineer was already dead when I got
Then
there.
our lead is cold, along with the corpse. Still, death has a way of leaving fingerprints. Did he leave any behind?
Everyone at the bull assumed he died from natural causes.
Self-inflicted incompetence happens more than you'd think.
I saw some frothing could be the drought, but it looked off.
Froth suggests seizure, or poison.
Seizure,
Or both.
poison.
His usual habits might have masked something more deliberate.
Well, staff sir, we know what
I
it
see.
was.
Then I suggest you speak with our resident Sook, Dr. Shafat. Perhaps she can clarify what your untrained eyes cannot.
I know where
Dr.
she is.
Shafat keeps a back alley.
Should I go there, or do I just... I guess either one of them would have told me. Maybe that's what it was. Finally, a quest that didn't end almost immediately. Spoke with Klimt, Austin's assistant. She didn't want to believe it, but I laid it out. This was murder.
You rattled her then. Good. Did anything shake loose?
She said Austin had been on edge lately, had a thopter lined up, meant to fly out to his workshop tomorrow.
Did she say where? If he was running, that's the direction we look.
Eastern shield wall, buried in sandfly. Eastern shield wall. East. Okay, that's not where base is.
Very good. You're starting to think like a Cheops player.
Cheops?
But every cleared square reveals a trap or a truth. Go see which one Lath left behind.
What's Cheops?
The pyramid game. 9 levels. Like chess, built for mentats. It doesn't matter if you have... The point is,
I wanna play.
You don't win Cheops by chasing pawns. Every piece changes value as you climb the board. Just like an investigation, you can't trust what's in front of you until you understand what's above it and what's beneath.
Right. I'll get going then. I wanna play Cheops. Right. We're just running around with body parts in our pocket. And now we're going back to Haga Basin. Hiccup, sorry. There's more to do, it seems. It isn't over. Let me into the world. That's the maker and his water. Oh. Oh, oh. I'm trying to think, he was placed there, but why? And then they murdered him. Also why? What are they covering up? It's a murder mystery. Alright, sandflies. East. This is east, right? I'm itching my eyeball. Rubbing my eyes. Close? What? Where? Locate the sandfly's base. East? This is east. But this is very clearly west. This is west. This is east. Y'all. Our house, our base is in the eastern shield wall, and yet I keep not going there. Oops. Ignore that. Just a little bump. It was an accident. At least it's close to home. We got 10 minutes left to finish this. Solved a murder. We're gonna solve a murder. Lock in. At least we didn't need a scanner. Would have sucked if I had to keep going back and forth. Alright. It's here. This way. Pretty sure I've been here. Space? Oh. Right here. First we clear. But where's your head? Where's your noggin? I fell. I fell. Totally intentional. Where are you going? I was trying to be sneaky about it, okay? And then I fell. This workshop? Is it down here? Here? Lower. One floor down. Here?
Someone here.
It's me! I don't know who they're fighting. Okay. I know where this is.
Someone's here. I need help.
It's here somewhere. How convenient. They put themselves right on the path of my blade. I love when that happens. Aha! Halt! Is this the right key? It is. Alright. Look for clues. I'll take the money.
After the pamphlet, I started asking questions like, who does this serve? And the answer kept coming back. It serves them, the nobility. And nobody burned brighter.
Got Dune drops? Yay! Did
money,
I?
old grudges. She wore ruin like perfume. We drank, talked, pretended we weren't just ghosts. One night, I told her my worst secret. The one I can't say here. She didn't flinch. I asked her what that made me.
I didn't get
she said, a man with
Dune
blood on his
drops.
hands like the rest of us. You just don't wear gloves. Then one morning she showed up with real gloves, silk, elbow length. I knew she was hiding something. I gave her my worst sin like it was a love letter. She smiled, kissed me, then she asked for a confession. Not for her, for the Harkonnens. Said she needed money to buy back her family's heirloom. I laughed and asked if she was serious. Deadly, she said, and took another sip of her drink like it was just another Thursday.
So... Okay. Old Carthag schematics. He was the architect. Now what? Okay. Discuss your findings with tours. Another back and forth. About these body parts in my pocket. Oi, don't call me that. It's rather rude, sir. Called me an imperial pig. North. Back to Arakeen we go. What is in your pocket? Body parts. I have liver. Never mind, it's gone. Ah! Did I? Guys, I'm scared. How do I do this to myself? Every time. So, Ace Pilot Ellie at it again. Do not let her fly. Listen. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. I know my way out of this. I've broken out of so many maps in the past. Let me out! Let me out! Look at my Uber, y'all. Ellie is waiting outside of the map to drive you to your destination, fly you to your destination. Call them out, please! I can't believe I did this on stream. Oh gosh, okay. No. Where am I? What? I mean, surely if we just keep flying north, it'll spit us out somewhere, right? Bruh. Let me out! Let me out! Let me out! You can't keep me in here! I am innocent! I can still pick things up though. Okay. Looks rather dangerous. Usually I can just walk out, but I can't here. Oh, I'm just going lower and lower, aren't I? Oh, okay. Maybe I can walk out here? No? No! Let me out! I can grapple that outside thing.
Sector weather alert. A large sandstorm is approaching.
Okay. It's the Coriolis storm, not the... Maybe if I... Thank you for the stretch and hydrate! Let me get my water real quick. But... I think I'm stuck right now. Everybody drink water. So, what if I ended stream inside of the wall? Hello, Aeon, how are you? Unstuck. Unstuck me. It canceled it! Yeah, I actually can't move now. Oh, but my stamina is going down. As if I am doing something. Does it think I'm climbing? This game is 20% off, by the way. It's on sale. If you two... Oh, okay, it unstuck me from that, but I'm still here. My leg! My leggy! Can I? Good ending point, right? It's great, actually. I was meant to be here. This is where the end of the quest takes me. Let's keep going north. Maybe maybe we can hit the... Nope. No? No. 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 Let me out. You can't do this to me. Please, I have a family. I have a Muad'Dib in my base that I need to feed. Let me out. Oh no, I'm really stuck. Okay. I can't unstuck. There's a timer on requesting to be unstuck. Well, guys. It won't let me. I'm stuck. How do I do this to myself every single time? Bruh. Oh. Well, that's fantastic. Am I getting hurt? I'm getting hurt. I was getting hurt. This is dangerous now. Oh wait, but I made it through. I made it through? This one's solid. Can I go up there? This one's solid too. So is this. Is this a ceiling? Look at... Okay. Surely relogging will get me out of here. Actually, I want to relog closer to the ground. Because I feel like it'll put me on the surface? Wait, I can't. I can't go back in there. Ah! Who needs Neo Carthag? You can just send them to the back rooms, right? Can you Bindu sprint out of it? No. It's a solid wall. How did I get through? Watch this. Ah! Nope, I can't. This is your tomb now. Devs! Devs! Can someone add the devs? Let me out! Let me out of here. I guess I could die, but like I have stuff. I don't want to lose my stuff. Okay, I'm gonna go here. I can't unstuck. We're gonna go main menu and come back. She looks so sad. She's like, I can't believe this is happening to me. We were on a timer. We're 5 minutes past. Oh, let me click that button. Just in case. There we go. Let me go. Hopefully we're on the surface and not outside of the map still. Watch us come back and we're falling again. That happened to me before. It's over! Well guys, this is the end of my adventure. Stuck forever. Should it be, would it be a report bug? I flew into the wall and it sent me, where am I? And now I'm stuck. Where am I stuck at? I'm stuck where? Behind the cliff. I tried relogging and I'm still back here with no way out. Please send help. I don't think... Save me! I don't... Guys... This is like the 7th report that I've sent of me being out of bounds. I think they're gonna start thinking that I'm doing this on purpose. But listen, I have proof this time that it was an accident. You reported it mid-air? Yeah, I reported it while falling through the map before. Let me out. Let me out. I'm just a girl, please. Well, I guess I'm stuck here. If anything, I could just die, right? I mean, each time I reported it, I was out of bounds. Like, I have proof. I swear. I just keep finding these things, I guess. It's not my fault. Every single game I play. Was it Grim that was like, why am I not surprised? There has to be like a hole somewhere. Okay. I do need to go because I'm hungry. I'm gonna make fried chicken if my chicken is thawed. But I will see if I can find a way out here so we can continue tomorrow. But if I'm still stuck here, then I'll stream something else. Probably a Little Witch of the Woods. But this is hilarious. I can't believe I'm ending a stream out of bounds. Right after I was bragging about my ace pilot skills. But I mean, you know, it takes a certain amount of skill to fly here. Free me! The Don't forget to use all the ingredients. I will try. And I'll let you guys know tomorrow if I succeeded in making my fried chicken properly this time. Interdimensional flying, right? I flew out of the map. Like, who? I have a license for that, surely. Anyways, this VOD will be up on YouTube in a few hours. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm gonna try to break out of here. I'll figure it out. If anyone can do it, I can do it. Can I even... Maybe when I was out there, it would have worked, but in here? Deep in here? I don't know. Man, what if a storm comes? I'm gonna be dead if a storm comes. I can't just log out here. It's... If I log out here, I'm pretty exposed to the elements, right? At least for 30 seconds. So I gotta leave before a storm comes. We'll see. Hopefully I can, like, summon a dev or something. Anyways. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Why does she look so pale? I thought we fixed this. Why is she still so pale? It's the lighting, I swear. Okay. I'll see you guys next time, okay? I love you. Take care of yourselves.